Sure. So I'm Diane Leonard, and I am the president of DH Leonard Consulting and Grant Writing Services, and I've been in this role for just about 15 and a half years. That's a winding path story. Who would have ever imagined? So I started my career actually on the other side. I was a grant maker. And so that's an unusual part to the path start, I think. And I didn't get the memo that often when you are a grant maker, you might retire there. So, but I think what's really interesting is about how I even got there. It was really because of a fellowship I had as an undergrad that enabled me to create my own internship in any nonprofit. And at the time, I was like, what in the world is it that grant makers do? I wanted to learn about it. And so found an internship that was happy to have an undergrad student that had their summer stipend already paid for. And so the Michigan Women's Foundation, it became my home for where I could start and learn about philanthropy. And I also didn't realize that Michigan was an incredibly philanthropic state. It's where Kresge is and Mott. It's where Ford Foundation had started. Kellogg was still there. It's just a great place to learn about what it's like to be a grant maker, to see what it is that grant seekers go through. And it's where I really decided I'm spending my entire career in this space. And so having gone from there, it's going, well, I see what happens in the grant making space. I see the stress that grant seekers face. How could we do this differently? Could it be different? And so decided to try to be on the other side. And so went from being a full-time employee at a grant maker to a full-time employee in a grant seeking organization. Was the Foundation and Grants Coordinator for the Alzheimer's Association Greater Michigan chapter. So was finding grants for the entire state of Michigan related to Alzheimer's disease, caregiver education programs, adult day programs, respite for caregivers. And that was a new kind of stress. And it was exactly what I had seen in terms of the stress when I was on the grant making side to the grant seeking. And I said, you know what? I still think there's got to be a different way to do this instead of onesie, twosie, thinking about what we're doing as our own individual employee. And so decided, a little naive, I'll be a freelancer. I'll help lots of organizations at one time. If I knew then what I know now, I don't know if I would have been so brave. But my employer was willing to be my first client. And so I was able to make the leap and start my work. And I, at the time, didn't, again, being younger and maybe a little naive, I wasn't worried. I didn't have an MBA. At that point, I did not have my GPC. I did not have a CFRE. I just had a dream and an idea that we could make grants less stressful for nonprofits of all shapes and sizes. And that's really been what's driven our work. Since then, I have gone on to become a GPC. I have become a Scrum trainer by Scrum Inc. So some things that have been important in our work that I think help define part of who we are as a team. And as a result, we work with organizations of all shapes and sizes. And that is, to me, that's a lot of what's really fun about this work. It's stressful running a business. It's stressful thinking about the grants for each organization, but it's really fun to focus on building grant seeking capacity in organizations that are in very different places in their grant seeking life cycle and their strategy growth. I don't have any other word for it except for fun. And so now when I look back, yeah, it's a winding path, but I can see how it all connects and how every day our team still comes together to say, well, what are we going to do to make grants less stressful today for the clients we work with, but also for those that we're training and coaching and mentoring? What is it that we can do? And I laugh because if I think back on that winding path, there's a few things that are those like defining moments. And I was talking with a colleague just yesterday about one of those. And it was the day that I landed in Indianapolis for my first ever GPA conference. And I got in the airport shuttle, the random one that I was assigned based on the time I signed up for. And I met current GPA board president, Amanda Day. And the rest is history. I found my peeps. And I think that was an important part of thinking about like our trajectory and the business and the support, having a network and a place to ask questions and grow together has been a huge part of, I think, what's made me who I am as a grant professional today. And well, who knows what the next 15 and a half years brings. Loaded question. You're right. I don't do a lot of writing. I would say I choose where I write. There's some specific areas of our work that are real passion areas for me. And so I definitely might pick and choose. I think that probably what surprises people the most is how much I love organization and process and thinking about different ways that we can work together, thinking about how to connect the dots differently. Um, and so maybe, yeah, it's the fact that when I look at what I do now, people are usually surprised that I love to talk and I love to train and I love to teach. And I'm happy to talk to anybody, get on a soapbox at any time related to grants. But I am one big, big introvert. And people are always like, really interesting. And so I don't know what that says about me, but it usually surprises people. People aren't surprised that I love to read, hence the bookshelf. People aren't surprised that I love coffee because I guess I talk about it a lot. People aren't surprised that I love to run as a form of self-care so that I don't burn out. The introvert thing is usually what surprises people. Again, maybe it's just my personality, but I think also the fact that you can run a business, you have to sell yourself, and if you have a team, your team and your skills, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't say anything about where you fit on a personality type. So I guess that's what would maybe surprise people. Well, so the types of professional development that I engage in, I mean, I always love to learn and hear from other grant professionals, think about ways we can do this specific work differently. But over the last few years, a lot of where I've been spending my time and effort is in thinking about team development, management, business development type things. As our team grows and shifts, it's a spot where I took a lot of business classes in college, but things have changed. Now we've got to think about motivating remote and hybrid teams. The business world is evolving. So I'd say that's probably where I'm spending most of my time these days, to make sure that as we're growing, as I said, as a team, that I'm being the best leader I can be, in addition to feeling really solid in my grant professional skills. Well, many members of our team, current and past, have their GPC, and that's something that we really encourage. But at the same time, we have team members with a wide range of higher ed degrees that are related to their passion areas, their focus areas. So I think that there's not a one size fits all for what's going to make someone a successful grant professional. None of them are the magic silver bullet magic pill that's going to guarantee grant success. Because I think if there was such a thing, we'd all have that one. None of them mean it. But I think really understanding your why in your career, maybe if you haven't read Simon Sinek's Start With Why, that's a good place to start that question for yourself. But I think the credentials, the degrees that you get should be tied to your why. And so for me, GPC has been a perfect one. Having the Scrum Trainer by Scrum Inc. credential, that's been a big one. But that's tied to my why. Less stress for grants, twice the impact in half the time. Those two things go together like peanut butter and jelly for me, but not for everyone else. Yeah. I would suggest talking with others that are in the field. See what their job looks like, see what their career sounds like. It's amazing to me how, yes, we are within one professional association, but each of our day-to-day, each of our year-long plans, we all look so different for how we use this skill set and this passion to create change in the world. And so by talking to others, maybe you can find inspiration for a different way to try using this skill and passion in a way that looks different as a job, but still maybe hits at your why.